My name is Pearse Johnson. My connection to Acadia is I just graduated in the summer of 2021 with a Bachelor of Science in Psychology. And yeah.
So my name is Nele. My connection to Acadia is that I was there as an exchange student in 2017, from 2017 to 18. And I'm doing my master's degree in anthropology in Ireland at University College Cork at the moment.
And you both had a chance to meet with Indigenous elders, right? So you both know Elder Darlene Peters Copeland on our screen now. What difference did that make in your learning to actually listen to and learn from a Mi'kmaq elder?
I think it made it so much more real because if you just hear about Indigenous peoples, that's one thing. But then if you really hear about Indigenous peoples from Indigenous peoples themselves, that's a whole other thing, and makes the whole thing more real and gives you a better idea about it. And also, to be honest, I think there's more emotional investment in these kinds of things because then you really have an emotional connection to someone. Someone is telling you the story that they lived, that they really experienced themselves. It's not just something you read about in an article. So I think, yeah.
Did you find you were able to position, as international students, did you find you were able to position Canada in an international context, understanding the forces of colonialism? And is colonialism over and done with?
Yeah, whenever my family members talk about Canada, they only really see the positive light. They may look at Trudeau and think, wow, he's the best prime minister. But when you start learning more about Canadian history or learning more about just the daily news, checking out non-mainstream news sources, you start to learn a lot more and get a more fuller picture. A picture that is more balanced, I would say. And from what I've learned, especially in my fourth year, it's a perpetual cycle that just keeps continuing. I definitely learned the term neocolonialism as it's still going on, and there's still ways that is making it like very hard for people to thrive. And it's not in your face all the time. It's something that's, like you would say, deeply rooted. And I've definitely learned that it's something we all have to continue to try and learn about.
Thank you. Nele?
Yeah, I think that you always see Canada in this like whitewashed picture, kind of, because you don't really think of Indigenous peoples first if you hear about Canada, I think. But yeah, I think it's a big part of learning. A big part of decolonizing yourself is learning about Indigenous cultures in Canada, because only that way you can really educate yourself and do something and become more aware of what is actually going on.
So if you don't get an opportunity to learn from Indigenous peoples or read books written by Indigenous scholars and so on, what can you do as a student? What do you have any recommendations? Were there any ideas about how to get involved? Or do you have favorite places to go listen to Indigenous people sharing their realities?
I think there's always safe places in campus and places to create dialogue on campus. But I would say my go-tos are the independent news sources for me. The ones I can think of, like the Narwhal, for example, because you're hearing directly from writers that come from an Indigenous background. They're talking about local issues, and I think that would be my go-to place. Would actually be those independent news sources.
Elder Darlene, if I'm curious as a student and I have a question, I might be shy to ask you a question about Canada's history, about the community, or about governance, about anything. What's a good way to ask a question?
To me,
Yeah, or to
Yeah.
it to an elder.
Well, you know what? At Acadia now we have Sabrina Whitman there. We have the Native students that are around. We have our own little room. Um, and I don't think you need to be shy. If you see any of us on campus, you can ask any questions, because we are so used to people not knowing. So it wouldn't surprise me, of any of the questions that they have. Also, we have a lot of things happen at Acadia, like we have the orange T-shirt for September. We have talk about Treaty Day on October 1st at Acadia. We also have the Sisters of Spirit Walk on the 4th of October. And 2 years ago, before COVID, we had the powwow, the first ever powwow at Acadia, and the midwinter feast we've been having for a while at Acadia. So there's events happening, and at that time there's lots of people around that they can ask questions, and a lot of our elders that come there, Gerald Glode, Elder Joe Mike, um, Lorraine Whitman. There's all kinds that come there that they can ask questions, and they'd be more than happy to answer them. It's getting the information out there and the awareness out there.
That's great to hear. This has been a wonderful international dialogue. I'm so grateful to be here together with each of you. Any final tips for Acadia students who are new?
Yeah, I mean, it can just be something, learning about other people's cultures or learning about something that doesn't seem relevant to you can be hard. It's understandable, but just putting your foot out there and just trying, or just pushing yourself to just try to open a door that, isn't familiar, can give you such insight. And, if you're paying for an education, you may as well push yourself to learn about challenging things or things that you don't think you would ever learn about, especially for science students that can't take arts electives. Just try out different things, politics courses, anything, just to push yourself to get a well-rounded education.
Thank you, Nellie.
Yeah, I think it's worth and to take the chance and to really get invested in other cultures, because Canada is not just white people, it's also Indigenous peoples and it's also other people of color. So it's always good to what do you say, put a foot out there or something, and take the chance to talk, to actually get invested with other cultures, not just the mainstream colonial culture.
Well, I think what's so exciting is that Acadia has so many students from so many backgrounds, and it's always a great opportunity to also get to know each other from
Yeah,
different parts of the world, different religious backgrounds, and so on. So that's part of education as well, not just what happens in the classroom,
Mm.
right?